Tonight, the devastating arson during a house party that killed 4 siblings.
I can remember shouting, "Get my babies out."
The dad of Megan Stammers talks exclusively to us. And the haul of fabulous jewellery, which needs reuniting with its owners. Hello and welcome to Crimewatch. We're back in a studio packed full of eager detectives, all here in the hope that you can solve their cases. We are live for the next hour with appeals from across the UK. Officers from Lancashire are investigating the terrible arson attack that killed 4 of Michelle Smith's children in the village of Freckleton. It happened in January.
Every time I look at their pictures and see the smile on their faces, it's devastating. It's just killing me, really, inside.
And the Metropolitan Police have dramatic new evidence in the murder of Ricky Smith, who was stabbed in a random attack 15 years ago. The case originally featured on Crimewatch back in 1998. But new DNA evidence shows that Ricky wasn't the attacker's only victim that night.
Have you got the time?
I felt like I was getting punched, but actually I was getting stabbed. I was pretty shocked. This guy just carried on that same night and actually killed someone.
That's later. And also tonight, former policeman and rugby legend Martin Bayfield is back with more wanted faces and crimes caught on camera.
Yes, take a look at this lot. Amongst them are people wanted for murder, drug dealing and GBH. And I need your help with some unbelievable CCTV, including this traffic warden being brutally kicked in the head.
Police in Weston-super-Mare are hunting the sex attacker who targeted a young woman in broad daylight. They think this hoodie with the rock group Fight Stars logo could be crucial in identifying him. And we've the incredible story of how police caught the gang who raided a top security cash depot, stealing an unprecedented £53 million.
It's a very secure, tight premises to enter. It's not somewhere you can just knock and walk in.
And Matthew's going to have some stunning updates on some of our previous cases.
Yes, really amazing results, including the return of the stolen Henry Moore sculpture we appealed for on our last show, and the conviction of the racist thug who attacked a 15-year-old, leaving him with permanent brain damage.
What's that video camera doing in my face?
No?
What's that video camera doing in my face?
BBC Crimewatch, mate.
I don't give a Get that camera out of my face now. Get that camera out of my face now.
I'll do it.
That's later. Now, just feast your eyes on this. It's 300 grand's worth of diamonds, sapphires and gold, all recovered by police from a house in West Yorkshire. Could any of it be yours? But before all of that, we need to remind you of Sussex Police's investigation to find missing schoolgirl Megan Stammers. The 15-year-old who attends the Bishop of Bell Secondary School in Eastbourne left the country last week with her maths teacher, 30-year-old Jeremy Forrest. Well, Megan's mum Danielle and dad Martin have had an agonising few days since then, as you can well imagine. Martin is here with us in the studio tonight. I should tell you that Danielle has stayed at home. She is anxiously waiting by the phone, just hoping that Megan is going to call. Martin, you and Danielle must have just had a truly agonising few days.
Cassie, it's awful, not obviously for me and Danielle, but a family as a whole. We're a very close family. Her grandparents, just close friends, family. It's just devastating. We're just in pieces.
Everybody connected to this seems to be highly distressed by the situation. We saw Jeremy Forrest's parents indeed give a very emotional and heart-wrenching press conference this afternoon themselves, appealing for them to make contact and come back home. It has been astonishing, the amount of people who've been in contact with you via websites and so on. Just tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, we decided that, you know, we needed something out there. It's a voice of everyone that's been in touch with us, and I can only express my gratitude to them from us as a family, because without them there are certain things that have come through that we would never have got. So I can just urge people to carry on posting, tweeting, whatever needed to get the message out there to get Megan home.
You're talking to millions of people tonight,
Yes.
but actually it could be the case that really you're just talking to a couple of people, and they could be people that really genuinely do know where your daughter is.
Absolutely.
What would you like to say to them?
If anyone knows anything, and it could be slightly insignificant detail, it doesn't matter, just please get in contact with the police. And if, Megan, if you're seeing this, just pick up the phone, ring your mum. Your mum is in pieces, darling. Just pick up the phone, ring, just so we know you're okay. Nothing more, nothing less, just ring so we know that she's okay.
Megan's not in trouble. You just need to know that she's safe.
Oh, by no means is she in trouble. No, no, no. We just want to hug her. We just want her back in her arms.
OK. Martin, thanks very much for taking the time at what is, I'm sure, an incredibly difficult time.
Thank you.
Well, Megan and Jeremy Forrest were last seen, I should tell you, boarding the Dover to Calais ferry. That happened last Thursday. They were travelling in his black Ford Fiesta. The reg of that is GJ08RJO. So, of course, anyone who knows the whereabouts of either of them should please call the studio. The family is desperate. That's the number, 0500 600 600. Or you could call the Sussex Police Incident Room line. Let me give you their number. It's 01273 475 432. Now, there have been several shocking arson attacks in the news over the last few months. But I want you now to cast your minds back to one which happened at the very beginning of the year. It was on January the 7th. In the Lancashire village of Freckleton, Michelle Smith was celebrating her 36th birthday. She was having a house party. But at some point that night, someone started a fire in one of the bedrooms, killing the 3 children that were sleeping there and their elder brother, who tried in vain to rescue them.
I've been a mother since I was 16 years old, and that is all I've known, is looking after my children. It's just left me feeling empty.
This is the small village of Freckleton in Lancashire. It's where in January this year, Michelle Smith was at home celebrating her 36th birthday. But the night was to end in tragedy after someone started a fire in an upstairs bedroom. A fire which was to claim the lives of 4 of Michelle's children.
Jordan was 2. He was a cheeky little boy who was into absolutely everything. Always happy, always smiling. He was always walking into things and banging things, and so we called him Banger. Holly and Ella were twins, born 10 minutes apart. Holly had beautiful big brown eyes, brown curly hair. Ella had blonde hair, blue eyes, so completely different in their looks. They used to fight, as you can imagine twins doing so, but they were always, when they weren't fighting, cuddling each other, holding hands, being friends. Reese was 19. He was like my best friend as well as my son. We could talk to each other about anything. He was at 6th form, studying engineering. He was in his final year there, doing really well. As well as a big brother, he was also like a daddy to all 3 of them.
Being a grandma, I love all my grandchildren the same. When something horrendous like this happens to 4 innocent children that have done no harm to anybody, you know, it's just horrendous for anybody to go through.
So what do we know about that fateful night? By around 10:30 on January the 7th, the majority of guests at Michelle's party had gone. Only a small group remained. Just after 11 p.m, the lights went out. Guests thought it was a power cut, but it was actually caused by the fire burning through the house's electrics.
All I can remember is standing there feeling numb, and I can remember shouting, "Get my babies out."
Reese went upstairs to try and get them out of the bedroom, and I think it was the smoke that he couldn't stand.
I was expecting him to walk out of the door with the twins and Jordan and everything to be fine, but no.
Detective Superintendent Dermot Horrigan is leading the investigation into the terrible events of that night. Dermot, what makes this case even more horrific is that the fire was actually started here, in the children's bedroom, wasn't it?
Yeah, and as you can see, it's a truly devastating scene. On the night, the 3 children were fast asleep in this room. We had Holly and Ella, who were in bed at that side. And under here, Jordan was asleep in his bed. And this is where the wardrobe was. And that night, somebody has come in and put a naked flame inside the wardrobe. And that has caused all the clothing inside to take light. And very quickly, this room has been filled with toxic smoke. And that ultimately is what's killed the children.
It's unbelievable.
Well, it is. I mean, it's truly shocking for the family that somebody who was in their midst that night, another party-goer, has actually set fire to this wardrobe. And that person knows who they are. Indeed, there's probably somebody else out there who knows who that person is and what has happened. And they really need to search their conscience and come forward, tell us what happened, so that we can give the answers that the family so desperately need.
Fire crews on the night arrived within 11 minutes of the alarm being raised, but it was already too late.
Every day that goes by, I expect to wake up and it all be a nightmare, a very, very bad dream.
Four young lives were taken on January the 7th, but for their family, the pain of their deaths is made even worse by the lack of answers.
A lot of people have said that I've been strong through all of this, but inside I am just an absolute mess.
I still get up, waiting for him to come in, and I know, I say to myself, well, what are you doing? They're not going to come. Just so sad. I miss them so much.
Every time I look at their pictures and see the smile on their faces, it's devastating to me. It's just killing me, really, inside.
Beggars belief, this. We're joined now by Detective Superintendent Dermot Horrigan, who we saw there in the film with Matthew. Just a devastating effect as it has. 4 innocent young lives taken.
Absolutely. It's a horrendous thing to happen to 4 members of the same family. 3 young children and a young man who's just started out on his adult life. The family are devastated and are desperate to know what happened that night.
OK, you're here with your team tonight. It happened just at the start of January. How are investigations progressing?
Well, we've done a lot of work to establish exactly the detail as to what happened that night, and we're working very closely with fire investigation scientists to determine how the fire started and how it developed. And as you can imagine, this has been a long and painstaking investigation, but we are making some good progress.
Right, the person responsible knows they did it, but you think there's maybe somebody else who knows they did it?
Yeah, I'm convinced there's somebody out there who knows what has happened but hasn't yet come forward. And what I would say is if there's a member of the community out there that has something to tell us, this is not a time for divided loyalties. They must come forward, they must tell us what they know. But in particular, what I want to do is make an appeal to the person who started this fire in the wardrobe, because I know an awful lot about the fire, but what I don't know is why it happened. And therefore I need to know whether this was something that got out of hand or whether it was a deliberate attempt to harm the children.
OK, DS Horrigan, thanks very much. I have to say, if you know who did this, I would urge you, please, to get in touch with Crimewatch tonight. You might be the person that did it. It is time for you to do the right thing. Call us 0500 600 600 for the studio. You could call Crime Stoppers if you prefer. You can do that anonymously. Let me give you that number. That is 0800 555 111. Now Martin has the first of tonight's Wanted Faces.
Thank you, Kirsty. Now, just before we begin, I want to say that as a former police officer, I know just how dangerous the job can be, and the thoughts of everyone here go out to the families and colleagues of PC's Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes, who were murdered in the line of duty last week. OK, let's get going with tonight's Wanted Faces, starting with Riccardo Pisano. But he also uses the first names Ricky or Ree and the alias Brandon Pillay. And as well as being unsure of his name, he's also not sure how old he is, using a variety of dates of birth. Police think he's in his 30s and want to speak to him about the murder of 63-year-old Michael Polding, who was found dead in his flat in Brighton in July. Pisano, who has a South African accent but uses a stolen Italian identification card, has links to Croydon, Southampton and New Zealand. There's a reward of £5,000 for information leading to his arrest. Next is Derek Brockwell. Detectives want to speak to the 51-year-old in connection with an attempted robbery at a bank in Lytham St Anne's in February. This picture was taken a few years ago, but this image from CCTV is more recent. Brockwell, who has links to London, Glasgow and Ireland, is considered to be very dangerous. So if you see him or know where he is, call the police immediately. Number 3 is Scott Stephen Hughes. He's wanted in connection with money laundering and the large-scale supply of cocaine and heroin on Merseyside. 32-year-old Hughes, who also uses the surname Stevens, has links to Glasgow, Spain and the Netherlands. And lastly, for now, is Sean Donnellan. He's wanted in connection with a violent attack in Sheffield in June 2011, in which a man was hit over the head with a glass bottle. 42-year-old Donnellan, who also uses the surname Elliott, has links to North Wales and Morocco. Now, all of tonight's faces are on the website, and if you know where they are, please call 0500 600 600, or you can text 63399, type crime, leave a space, and then your message.
Next, detectives from Avon and Somerset are desperate for your help to catch this man here. He attacked a young woman in June. Thankfully, he left behind a trail of pretty intriguing clues, which could help you to identify him. The young woman's voice has been disguised.
I just wanted to be at home. I wanted to be at home. I wanted to be with my family where I felt safe. But I thought, this is really serious. You need to go to the police station.
Early on Sunday, the 17th of June this year, a young woman suffered a terrifying attack as she made her way home after a night out here in the seaside resort of Weston-super-Mare. It was 5:40 in the morning and broad daylight when she was grabbed from behind, dragged into bushes and sexually assaulted. Whilst her attacker is still at large, he left behind crucial clues which detectives hope you can help with tonight. On Saturday, the 16th of June, a group of friends went out for a drink. They stayed out until the early hours of the following day, when they said their goodbyes.
See you all soon. See you soon. Nice to see you. Good to see you. See you. Bye.
It was about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I mean, I don't even know how we stayed out that late. We obviously lost track of time. I decided I'd go meet my friend from work, because I knew she'd be finishing soon.
Hey, it's just me. Just wondering where you were. All right, see you in a bit. Bye.
I assumed, obviously, being at work, she wouldn't be allowed her phone with her. I tried to ring her again, but I was still a little bit early to catch her finishing work, and so I carried on down the cycle path. For some reason, I turned and looked behind me. There was a man behind me, and he wasn't paying attention to me, he didn't even look at me, so I thought nothing of it. He seemed to be minding his own business, and it was maybe 30 seconds later that I felt grab me around the throat. He pulled me off the path. I was just saying, please don't hurt me.
As her attacker attempted to rape her, she continued to struggle, until suddenly he seemed to have second thoughts. But it's what he said to her next which may hold vital significance.
I just split up with my girlfriend. I can't do this. I'm sorry.
I even said to him, I was like, do you realise what you just tried to do? And that's when he got up and he ran away.
When detectives and forensics officers searched the area that morning, they found a distinctive hoodie, identical to this. They're now desperate to find out who it belongs to. Detectives are working round the clock to find out more about this potentially vital piece of evidence. DCI Sue Wilshire is leading the investigation.
Well, we know that 100 of these tops were made, and it was for a band called Fight Star. It was a promotional garment that formed part of their Be Human tour. They were made and sold in February 2010 and retailed at around the £30 mark. But interestingly, only 25 of the tops that were made were in a large size, and that is very, very similar to the one that we have, in fact, recovered.
It was Father's Day morning. I was just thinking, you know, I just want to go back to my family. It's never going to go away. It's always going to be something that happened, and I'm always going to remember that morning. And it's not really going to get much easier until this guy gets caught.
Well, DCI Sue Wiltshire from Avon and Somerset Police is here with me now. Sue, as you said, this very unusual hooded sweatshirt that was found near the scene could prove crucial.
Yeah, that's right. These tops were made and sold back in February 2010, and they were a promotional garment for a rock group called Fight Star as part of their Be Human tour. We know that only 100 of these tops were ever made, 25 of them in a large size, which was identical to the size that, of the top that was left at the attack site. They were sold at concert venues up and down the UK, Sheffield, Wolverhampton, Edinburgh, London and Liverpool. And what I'm really keen to do is to speak to anyone that purchased one of these tops or is aware of a family member or maybe a relative who's owned one of them but hasn't seen them wearing it recently to come forward.
Another key part of the case is, I mean, it's pretty unusual, the stuff that he said to this young woman afterwards.
Yeah, that's right. The attacker said to the victim during the attack that he had recently argued and split up with his girlfriend, and I think this is a really significant piece of information. And what I'm urging the public to do is to see if there's a link between this distinctive hoodie and what was said to the victim at the time of the attack. Father's Day, Sunday the 17th of June this year.
There's an important bit of CCTV that we should show people. Tell us why it's important.
Yeah, this man was picked up on the CCTV in the area at 5:35. We're not treating him as a suspect, but we urgently want him to come forward or somebody that identifies him to ring in tonight so that we can see if he's got any key information.
We've shown people the EFIT, they can take a closer look on the website, but also crucially you've got DNA here.
Yeah, that's right. We have recovered forensic material in this case, so we'll easily be able to eliminate anybody if you ring in with a name.
OK, Sue, thanks very much indeed. If you can link these things that you've seen tonight with someone you know, then I would urge you to call the detectives here now, 0500 600 600. If you've been a victim of crime, then you can always call the victim support line. They're on 0845 30 30 900. Now, Martin.
Right, let's begin this month's CCTV with that shocking footage of a traffic warden being attacked on a Saturday lunchtime in Leicester earlier this month. 3 men walk towards a traffic warden, one of them spitting in his notebook as he passes. They stop and continue to verbally abuse the warden, taunting him and trying to take his pen. Unbelievably, his tormentor suddenly kicks him in the face. The victim received serious injuries and had to be treated in hospital. Name his attacker tonight. It's just before closing time inside the Co-op store in Cheslin Hay in Staffordshire on a Thursday night in April. 2 masked men calmly walk into the store. They round up the terrified shop workers before demanding to be taken to the cash office, where one of them confronts a member of staff, forcing him to open the safe. The pair are in and out in a matter of minutes, taking several £1,000s with them. They think they've made a clean getaway, but didn't realise their ugly mugs had been caught on camera as they left the shop. There's a £20,000 reward for information leading to the conviction of these guys. So come on, who are they? A Tuesday lunchtime in July at a jeweller shop in Chichester. A stocky man in a shirt and shorts walks in. He asks one of the shop assistants if he can look at an item from one of the display cabinets. As she leans in to reach it, he stretches over her and takes a Rolex watch worth £10,000 before slipping it into his pocket and nonchalantly walking out of the shop. Call time on this bad behaviour. Who is he? Inside an arcade of shops in Ilford in Essex during the early hours of a Thursday morning in April. And we've got another pair who think they can outsmart the CCTV. They know there are cameras inside and think they found a sophisticated way to hide from them. But it only works if you stand under the umbrella. They burst into a jeweller's shop after forcing the door with a crowbar. Whilst inside, they have a good look around, emptying the ring trays and the window displays. They spot one of the shop's cameras and knock it out using a mop. The pair then help themselves to gold jewellery worth more than 50 grand, even nicking the plastic bags to carry it in. But the man in the furry deerstalker is no Sherlock Holmes, as it takes him a while to deduce that their stealing spree is being caught on another camera. So he's back with the mop, this time giving us a nice clean shot of his face. Their elementary thieving may lack sophistication, but we still need to know who they are. Names, please. Lots more CCTV still to come, and you can see it all on the website. Please call 0500 600 600 if you can help, or text on 63399. Type crime, leave a space, and then your message.
OK, now I must say we have had some really cracking results on lots of appeals recently. I like this bit. Matthew and Martin have got all the details.
Well, we start with some great news from a case we featured in last December's show. You might remember the violent, racially motivated attack on 15-year-old Mo Borner. Mo was left with serious brain damage after being attacked as he walked home from a beach party in Bexhill in Sussex last October. Dozens of viewers named the attacker as 20-year-old Ashley DaCosta from Bexhill. He was duly arrested and Crimewatch cameras were there as DaCosta was taken through custody. He didn't seem too pleased to see us.
What's that video camera doing in my face?
Eh?
What's that video camera doing in my face?
BBC Crimewatch, mate.
I don't give a Get that camera out of my face now. Get that camera out of my face now. Get that camera out of my face now.
Well, in July, DaCosta admitted racially aggravated grievous bodily harm. He was also convicted of perverting the course of justice and was sentenced to 6 years in prison, with the judge describing him as racist and repugnant. In connection with the investigation into the attack on Mo, 25-year-old Jack Carrick, also from Hastings, was convicted for intimidating a witness and perverting the course of justice. He was sentenced to 2 years. Meanwhile, you'll be pleased to hear that Mo's recovery is progressing well.
Now, an excellent result from an appeal from January's show. 79-year-old widow Nellie Geraghty died after being attacked and robbed near her home in Shaw, near Oldham, last November. Her attacker left her for dead after stealing her handbag, which contained her purse and her late husband's ashes. Well, last month, 37-year-old Mark Royal was convicted of robbing and murdering Nellie. And again, Crimewatch cameras were there as he was booked into custody. He will serve at least 28 years in prison.
In March's programme, we told you about the murder of 80-year-old Jenny Methven from Fortaviot in Perthshire, who was found battered to death at her remote bungalow in February. We filmed a reconstruction, but it was never shown, as just before it went on air, police made a significant breakthrough, the arrest of this man, 46-year-old William Keane. Well, last month, Keane was found guilty of Jenny's murder and ordered to serve at least 22 years in prison.
Now, you may well remember this CCTV from last September's programme. Cameras at the Haslemere Museum in Surrey captured 3 men casing the displays before returning at night to steal an extremely rare and valuable rhino head in May 2011. Well, as direct calls from Crimewatch viewers, the 3 men were identified, and earlier this month, 34-year-old Jamie Channon and 30-year-old Tony Moore pleaded guilty to conspiracy to burgle. The pair also admitted conspiracy to burgle 13 supermarkets in which more than £60,000 worth of cigarettes were stolen. They were sentenced for both offences, with Shannon receiving 7 years and Moore 5. The third male was identified, but the Crown Prosecution Service deemed there was insufficient evidence to proceed against him.
Right, still to come tonight, the inside story of how a gang of armed robbers kidnapped a family in their bid to steal £53 million in cash.
They're quite happy to kidnap and traumatise a family.
I am going to shoot you!
I've never heard of anything like it in my nearly 30 years as a police officer.
And, well, at 300 grand, this little collection may not be worth quite so much. Certainly more sparkly, though. Can you help return it to its rightful owners? Now, back in 1998, we appealed for your help to catch the killer of Ricky Smith. The father of 2 young children from Highbury in North London was walking home with his partner when he was killed in a random attack. The case remains unsolved, but now new forensic techniques have revealed that Ricky wasn't the only victim that night.
Help! Help! Stop it!
There's someone being stabbed in the street, and there's blood pouring out of him, and he's laying down in the street.
The identity of the stranger who stabbed Ricky Smith here almost 15 years ago is still a mystery. That night, Ricky was walking home after an evening with his partner when his attacker approached him and, without warning, stabbed him once in the heart. When we first asked for your help back in 1998, detectives received some interesting leads, but Ricky's killer is still at large. Now, though, detectives have crucial new evidence which they hope may finally help catch him.
He started a business when he was young. He worked very hard. He started early hours in the mornings, worked till about 8 at night. He had a good reputation for doing good work.
He was the best son you ever wished for.
He was the best father. He used to always bring me everywhere I wanted to go. He used to love his boxing, loves his music.
Ricky and his partner, Anita, were devoted parents. Friday, October the 3rd, was to be their first night out together since the birth of their second child, Paul.
To go to sleep straight away.
Night-night.
Whilst a relative babysat, they went to their local pub, the Nag's Head, in Highbury. At closing time, the couple left to get some food. Their journey took them along Highbury Park. As they reached the junction with Hamilton Park, a man walking in the opposite direction suddenly turned on Ricky and, without warning, stabbed him.
He stabbed me!
The knife pierced Ricky's heart. He didn't stand a chance. Witnesses saw the attacker leave along Highbury Park, turning into Orbit Park before disappearing without a trace.
Did you say anything?
I picked up the phone, and a young girl was on the phone, and she says, your son Ricky's on the floor. He's been stabbed.
Are you with this lady?
I remember my aunt was babysitting, and she woke me up and she said, something's happened to your dad. He's in hospital. I always thought he'd come back, but as the years go on, you realise, because he was the first person ever close to me to die.
In the decade and a half that has passed since Ricky's murder, policing and forensic techniques have come a long way. In a recent review of the case, scientists unearthed new evidence linking the knife man to another stabbing, which took place that very same evening. It was 8 miles away in Kensal Green near Harlesden in northwest London. There was another unprovoked attack, this time on 21-year-old South African John Murray, who was on his way to a barbecue in an unfamiliar part of London.
I stopped to ask for directions to this person, and the person just said, "No, sorry."
No. Have you got the time?
As I looked down to see what the time was, I felt like I was getting punched. But actually I was getting stabbed. I think the diaphragm was hit. Punched lung, 2 stab wounds, one missed the heart basically with a centimetre, and the one, as I think the knife went down through the diaphragm into the stomach as well.
Acting DCI Colette Smith is now leading the investigation into both stabbings. Colette, 2 attacks 15 years ago. What have you discovered that has now linked these attacks?
Well, the suspect wore very distinctive clothing, which he discarded in Colwood Street, which is just here near the old Arsenal football ground. And we've been able to forensically analyse that, and that shows us that the DNA from that is now linked to both attacks.
And the 2 attacks, seemingly no motive, very, very violent attacks.
They are. There's absolutely no motive that we can find over these last 15 years that would lead us as to why either attack was committed on either gentleman. And I don't believe that you could commit both these terrible acts and go home that evening, or someone not find out about it or become aware of it over the last 15 years.
I was pretty shocked, yeah, to find out that this guy just carried on that same night and actually killed someone, and you know, he hasn't been caught all these years and he got away with it.
We can't rest without him being caught. He's messed so many lives up, so many people's lives.
It's been horrible for my brother too, because he's never got the chance to meet my dad. I still have them memories, what my brother don't have, but you can see how much it really hurts him and stuff.
We just got to get him. We have got to get him. It's terrible that he's still walking the streets, taking lives, taking young boys off the streets. He's got to be caught.
Well, I'm joined now by Detective Chief Inspector Colette Smith from the Metropolitan Police, who Martin spoke to. You saw her there in the film. Thanks for joining us. 15 years ago seems like a long time, but these new forensic breakthroughs are going to be crucial to this case. Tell us about them.
Yes, they are. I mean, it's hard to comprehend that someone hasn't confided in what they did 15 years ago, or that someone hasn't had their suspicions about them. We now have the forensic answer. We just need the attacker's name.
OK, Colette, tell us more about these clothes. They're crucial.
Yeah, they are crucial. A man went to the address in Colwood Street early the next day, and he inquired about the blue distinctive baseball hat, which is blue with the yellow piping and the Reebok at the back. But more importantly, he also inquired about this Chicago Bulls jacket. He was told that both items had been handed over to the police. And on hearing that, he said that he would assist the police, but he never did do that. He very distinctly uses the phrase, "I'll make my contribution." And I'd urge him tonight to come forward, make his contribution to us, because I feel that he may have vital information to the inquiry.
OK, Detective Chief Inspector Colette Smith, thanks very much for that. I should tell you there's a 20 grand Crime Stoppers reward available on this. You saw from our film there the pain that Ricky's family are in, even 15 years on. Can you help them get justice, I wonder? It is the usual number for the studio, 0500 600 600, or you could call Crime Stoppers, do that anonymously, 0800 555 111. Now, Martin.
Time for more CCTV now, starting on London's Embankment with a strange but frightening assault. A couple sheltering under an umbrella walk through the gates of the Inner Temple. They're followed by a strangely dressed man who suddenly grabs the woman from behind. He drags her by her hair into an alleyway. Her boyfriend hears her scream and rushes to help, pushing the man over. The woman is able to get free, but her attacker is determined. He confronts the couple and follows them, acting aggressively and swearing at them as they try to get away. Oddly, after they've left, he then attempts to close the gates. This man brazenly assaulted a woman in broad daylight in front of her boyfriend. Who is he? Inside the Vinyl Bar in Liverpool during the early hours of a Sunday morning in June. Two men in striped polo shirts walk up the stairs. A little later, an argument erupts in the doorway, and in the middle of it all are the men in the stripes. And it seems one of them isn't satisfied picking on blokes his own size, punching an innocent woman full force in the face. The victim suffered a fractured eye socket and is still receiving treatment for her injuries. We need to find this violent thug and his mate. Tell us who they are. A Monday evening in Lichfield in Staffordshire last December. But this isn't a spot of last-minute Christmas shopping, it's a whole load of Christmas stealing. A black Saab convertible pulls up outside a designer clothes shop, and a guy in a stylish Where's Wally hat gets out to have a look around. When Wally is satisfied the coast is clear, his mates pile out of the car and set about breaking into the shop, smashing through the door using an axe. Inside, they grab armfuls of expensive clothes, filling the boot of the car. But in their excitement, they fail to notice the shop's security camera. Hello. They then drive off with their haul, spoil their Christmas party, and tell us where's Wally and his mates tonight. Now, how about this for brazen? This is a street next to Finchley Road train station in London on a Tuesday morning in July. A gang of men in a white transit van seem to be having a little trouble negotiating the narrow lane. They're certainly not going to win any prizes for their driving. Whoops. Eventually, they manage to get the van into position. The reason for all that toing and froing becomes clear. Talk about aiming big. That reel, which they've just stolen from the station yard, contains thousands of pounds worth of electrical cable. And it's proving a little difficult to maneuver. But after some hard work and a whole load of unraveled cable, they finally manage to get it into the van. Time to reel in these thieving cable guys. Who are they? All tonight's CCTV stays online until they're caught. And if you recognise anyone, please call and text the numbers shown on the screen.
Some more updates now, starting with news of one of the first cases we ever featured on Crimewatch. 9-year-old Christopher Laverack was found dead after disappearing from his sister's home in Hull, where he'd been spending the evening in March 1984. Christopher's murder remained the longest-running unsolved case for Humberside Police until developments in forensic technology proved that Christopher's uncle, Melvin Reed, was responsible for his death. Detectives working with a forensic palynologist, a specialist in identifying pollen and spores, concluded there was enough pollen and other plant matter on the clothes Christopher had been wearing to link him with Reed's home address. Reed died in prison in 2008 while serving a 7.5-year sentence for sexually assaulting other children.
Next, a much more recent case. Last year, we featured the shooting of 21-year-old Rico Gordon, an innocent bystander who died after being caught in the crossfire of a gun battle between two rival gangs following the St Paul's Carnival in Bristol in July 2011. Well, last month, 31-year-old Shaka Anderson and 27-year-old Raquel Adams were found guilty of Rico's murder. Both were given life sentences at Bristol Crown Court. Adams, on the right, will serve a minimum of 35 years, and Anderson at least 32 years. A third man who police believe was involved in the shooting is still wanted, and anyone with any information should call Avon and Somerset Constabulary on 0117 945 40 30.
And we finish with some really remarkable news. You may remember in our last programme we appealed for your help in tracing a hugely valuable sundial designed by the renowned sculptor Henry Moore, which had been stolen from the Henry Moore Foundation in Hertfordshire in July. The sundial, which is worth around £500,000, was recovered after a scrap metal dealer watching the show recognised it, having innocently bought it. He duly called the studio, and the sundial has now been returned to their foundation. Will be back on display soon. A 22-year-old and a 19-year-old, both from Essex, have been charged with theft and are due to appear in court tomorrow. Martin.
Right, some more wanted faces now, starting with Christy O'Connor. Detectives want to speak to the 27-year-old in relation to a murder which happened in Cheshire in December 2010. O'Connor, who has a Liverpudlian accent, has links to Spain and the Netherlands. There's a £30,000 reward for information leading to his conviction. Number 6 is Neil Robinson. He's wanted in connection with the distribution of indecent images of children and the rape of a child. Robinson, who's 46, has links to Surrey and Sussex, but he may have travelled abroad. And finally tonight are brothers Robert and John O'Donoghue. They're wanted in connection with an aggravated burglary in Bristol in November 2011, during which the victim was violently assaulted. Robert, 26, and John, 34, have links to the West Country and to Ireland, but the pair may have travelled to the Netherlands. Robert has a large mole on his right cheek. Call and text on the usual numbers if you recognise any of tonight's faces. And of course, they all stay online until they're caught.
Now, one of the detectives who investigated the theft of £53 million from the Securitas depot in Tunbridge in 2006 described it as like something out of Mission Impossible. He's got a point. What still stands as the UK's biggest ever cash heist involved prosthetic disguises, kidnap, and an inside man. But although the plan was sophisticated, the gang simply couldn't deal with the sheer volume of cash, leaving behind 153 million because they couldn't fit any more into their lorry. And as Matthew explains, that was just the beginning of a litany of mistakes leading to their capture.
In 2006, a gang of violent thieves carried out the biggest cash heist in British history. Their target was the Securitas depot in Tunbridge in Kent, which at the time housed around £200 million.
It's a very secure, tight premises to enter. It's not somewhere you can just knock and walk in.
To carry out such an audacious robbery, the gang studied every detail of the maximum security fortress from the outside, but they were also collecting information from the inside. Emir Husanaj, a shift worker at the depot, earning £5.50 an hour, had been persuaded to feed every detail of the inner workings of the depot to the gang.
Using a pinhole camera stuck in his jeans and his belt, he filmed the inside of the depot.
Even with this information, the gang had no way round the depot's high-level security. So they decided on a ruthless solution: to abduct the depot manager, Colin Dixon, and his family. They set about monitoring the Dixons' movements.
It was quite extraordinary, the lengths they went to, finding out where he lives, what car he drives. Everything that would lead them to be able to get hold of him at any time.
They even went as far as secretly filming the family home.
They had actually set up the camera and woven it into a handbag, knocked on the door with an excuse that they were looking for somebody else. When you consider that someone's looking at you and your family for the purpose of greed only, they're quite happy to kidnap and traumatise a family, a child. And that is beyond it.
After 6 months of watching every move the Dixons made, they put their violent plan into action. First, disguised as police officers and using a fake police car, they kidnapped Colin Dixon.
Right. Now, if you cooperate, nobody will get hurt.
Next on their kidnap list was Colin's wife, Lynn, and their young child.
Miss Dixon?
Yes?
We've got some bad news for you, love. It's your husband.
A policeman's come to the door. The person they're supposed to trust has then taken them away. I've never heard of anything like it in my nearly 30 years as a police officer.
At gunpoint, Lynn Dixon and her young child were driven to a remote farm where Colin was being held hostage.
How many staff are there, Colin?
Do you think we're kidding here?
How many?
He's asked all sorts of questions about the inside of the depot.
If you don't cooperate, I am going to shoot you and your family.
Please, I'll tell you what you need to know.
He now knows that he's got no option.
The gang forced Colin Dixon to take them in to the high-security depot.
The chap on the control room recognises his manager straight away. Without question, lets him in. The plan is now working.
The heavily armed robbers burst into the depot and forced the terrified staff into metal cages.
They mean business, no doubt. A number of the employees were convinced that they were going to be killed.
The gang loaded £53 million into their lorry and made their escape, leaving the hostages locked in the depot. Colin Dixon was able to raise the alarm half an hour later, kick-starting the police investigation into Britain's biggest cash robbery.
How much? This was unprecedented. We had never come across this before. We had to conduct forensic examinations. We had 14 witnesses who had been kidnapped in the depot, all of whom needed to be interviewed.
Stealing £53 million is one thing, getting away with it is another. Who would dare to pull off such a brazen crime?
This must be an upper echelon robbery team. To organise this, to go to these great lengths, to steal so much money.
But one thing puzzled detectives. During the kidnap of the Dixon family, the gang members, posing as police officers, had no qualms about showing their faces. They must have been disguised in some way. But how?
A number of us were saying, well, what about prosthetic masks or disguises of that nature? Well, that's a bit mission impossible. But so stealing 53 million quid.
With forces up and down the country on high alert, it wasn't long before detectives had their first lead. Makeup artist Michelle Hogg.
Who's she? Apparently she made up a few guys to look like policemen.
And when her wheelie bin was searched, detectives discovered an Aladdin's cave of prosthetics. Although Hogg admitted making up the men, she knew nothing of their identity or what they were planning. Now the investigation was gathering pace, and next, 2 vehicles involved in the heist were discovered, burnt out. They were registered to Stuart Royal. Then a van was recovered which was linked to an employee of Royal, Lee Rusher. Inside was a ballistics vest, a submachine gun, and £1.3 million in cash. The cracks were appearing. These weren't your upper echelon criminals. They were a car dealer from Maidstone and one of his drivers. And when police raided Lee Rusher's home, they found a hand-drawn map of the depot and all the surveillance footage of the Dixons' home.
They were dreadful at covering the tracks, leaving a map of the inside of the depot in your home. You know, that is just unbelievable.
Police started to round up the suspects. But who was the ringleader? One name kept cropping up: Lee Murray.
Lee Murray was a celebrity cage fighter, known very much in the southeast of London. Then we had the names of Paul Allen that came in, who was very much Lee Murray's right-hand man.
Listen, I've got this job coming on. It'll be massive.
And the most devastating evidence against the gang would now come from Murray himself. His red Ferrari had been impounded in the weeks prior to the heist after a road accident.
Boss, you're not going to believe this. They found a mobile phone. You're going to want to hear what's on it.
Probably take 4 of us and with a van. Literally, it's going to be a matter of seconds, isn't it?
He recorded a 5-minute conversation with Lee Rusher, and they are clearly discussing planning for the robbery.
But Murray and Allen had already fled to Morocco, a country with no extradition treaty with the UK. They thought they'd got away with it.
They were living the life of luxury, buying cars, opening bank accounts, they were having companies formed. What they didn't bargain on was that we would chase them, and we did.
With the help of the Moroccan authorities, Paul Allen was sent back to the UK. Between them, the gang that had terrorised the Dixon family were sentenced to more than 150 years behind bars. But to avoid extradition, Lee Murray had claimed Moroccan citizenship. With his millions, he thought he was untouchable, but he was wrong. He was tried in Morocco, where he was found guilty and sentenced to 25 years.
They didn't realise, by stealing so much money, how much interest it would stir up in the public. That's where they went wrong. They nicked too much.
That's amazing, isn't it? They nick too much.
Yeah, 53 million, and they could have had the lot, all 206 million, if the truck had been bigger. The cash they stole, the notes, weighed half a tonne. The gang had planned this heist for months, but once they pulled it off, it was almost like they didn't know quite what to do. I think what stunned everyone wasn't just the colossal sums they stole, but the fact they got into this fortress of a complex. You saw how they did that. The security industry described these sorts of kidnappings as tiger kidnappings because they stalk the victims, take the families, make them comply. That was the weak link. They're still hunting one of the gang members. They're still hunting the money. They've recovered 23 million. 30 million is out there, probably abroad. Will they get it all back? Difficult.
Thanks, Matthew. Now, I want you to come over here. I've got something to show you. It is part of a collection of jewellery worth more than £300,000. It was recovered by police from someone's home, and Detective Inspector Lloyd Batley is here to explain how you can help tonight. Tell me a bit more, Lloyd. Where did it come from exactly?
Well, this is just a small selection from around 100 items of jewellery which were recovered from a house in West Yorkshire, and that followed a police operation which started in 2010.
OK. Who specifically do you want to hear from tonight, then?
Well, we'd like to hear from anyone who either recognises any of the items or has owned it in the past, or perhaps has worked on the items either to alter it or have it adjusted in any way. Obviously, if anybody thinks they might have had the items like this stolen, we'd be keen to hear from them as well. OK, Lloyd, let's take a closer look then. What should we be particularly homing in on? Well, perhaps the most unique item is this ring, which is it's in the design of a snake. It's diamond encrusted and it has a large yellow stone. It's quite unique, it's quite old, and obviously will be recognised by anyone who'd owned it previously. Yeah, that's for sure. There are a couple of other corkers at the front that have caught my eye. Tell me about those. There are. These are probably the most valuable items, the most valuable single items. The first is an emerald cut diamond. It's in a platinum setting. It's worth something in the region of £55,000. The second is a brilliant cut diamond solitaire. That's 5 carats, worth around £45,000. The stone predates 1940, but the setting is probably much more recent than that. Wow, very special pieces, Lloyd. Thanks very much indeed. As you've seen, very, very beautiful bits of jewellery there. We've got pictures and details of all of them on the website. If you need a closer look, then go there. Information about them, please, then do call us tonight. You know the number. It's 0500 600 600. Now, though, it's time for a last quick update on what's come in on the phones. Here's Martin.
Well, starting with the search for Megan Stammers, we've had calls, emails and texts from the UK and abroad. If you have any information as to her whereabouts, please do contact the police. That attempted rape in Weston, we've had 12 calls providing 6 possible names. Police are checking those out. And wanted face number 1, Ricardo Pisano, you have been seen and we are going to find you. Right, that's just about it for now. Remember that all of tonight's cases, as well as several appeals exclusive to the website, can be found online. The phones will stay open until midnight tomorrow night. We're going to be back again at 10:35 after the news tonight with the very latest on tonight's calls. Until then, from all of us here, thanks for watching. Thanks for calling. Bye-bye.